Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
To obtain additional copies, receive a free catalog of AA and Al-Anon talks, or to find out about our tape and CD of the Month Club, call Encore Audio Archives at 1-800-878-1308 or visit our website at www.12steptapes.com.
Hi, my name is Mark. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, everybody. And, Lord have mercy. Everyone looks so beautiful. Oh, thank you. So kind. Well, first of all, I want to say it's an honor to be here, and I want to thank all the committees, the advisory board, the speaker committee, and all of you. There are so many people here that I love and I adore and I admire and appreciate and have been on my fourth step, and yeah, a lot of you. So I'm truly grateful. I never would have imagined in a million years that I would be standing here. Never. So my first time at Living Sober was in 1998 when it was at the Bill Graham Auditorium. And what I remember about Living Sober was there used to be these like 12 feet tall drag queens on Saturday night standing out front, and it was very intimidating. And so I remember that. And I remember there was all these people, and it was just so beautiful, and so I knew that I wasn't unique anymore because there were so many people that looked just like me, but they didn't, if that makes any sense. But so my home group is Each Day New Beginnings, 7 a.m. And my sponsor's name is Christy S. And I love Christy S. First, I want to just say a few things about... So what I've learned in Alcoholics Anonymous is that the program is outlined in the first 164 pages. And Lisa talked about it so eloquently. About sponsorship, and what I know is that you have to have a sponsor, and the best way that I can describe it in my experience is that a sponsor is like a coach, and they coach you and guide you through the program, and without one it's really ugly. So that's my own personal experience, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. But this is what my sponsor texted me. She said, "You are just an alcoholic, nothing particularly special, but very well loved. Humility is where it's at. Ask God for help to remain so for the rest of the evening. Are you nervous?" So anyway. So my sobriety date is September 23rd, 1999. So as you can tell by the dates, I didn't stay sober from my first Living Sober. But anyway, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like now. So I was born in Dayton, Ohio. I'm biracial. So my biological father is African American, who I never knew, and my mother is Caucasian, who I never knew, and I was also adopted. Um, and um, and I was adopted by an African American family, a black family, and it was a secret. I never wanted anyone to know that. I had a lot of shame around that because I never felt like I looked like my family. I never felt like I belonged there. My parents had 3 children, 3 girls of their own, their biological children, and they were 5, 6, and 7 years older than me, and it was always felt like Cinderella with the wicked stepsisters, and I did, really, and so it was like me against them, and they used to always tease me and say, you know, you're not our brother. Who's your mother? Have you found your father yet? You know, just they say the ugly, mean things to me, and I'd go running to my parents crying, and my parents would always say that I was a special child because I was chosen, unlike my sisters who they were stuck with them. So again, I always knew that I was a special child. So my sponsor, I don't think that's accurate in the tags. I am special. But anyway, so thank you, Lisa, for talking about being a child. I've always felt like a child. I haven't felt like I've grown up. And I'm grateful to Alcoholics Anonymous because it's okay today for me to be a child and act like a child. I don't always act like a child, but 98% of the time I act like a child. But anyway, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I'm going to get sober quickly. So I'm going to talk... I grew up in my parents and my sisters, they loved me the best way that they could, and they loved me the best way that they knew how, and I'm also a survivor of incest and physical abuse and verbal abuse. I just say that to relate to hopefully help someone else. But I know Alcoholics Anonymous and working with a sponsor and working the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous has taught me that people do the best that they people do the best that they can do. It's not always the way that I like them to do it, but they have, and I've come to terms and peace around my family and my childhood. And I'm so grateful for that, and I'm grateful for that from Alcoholics Anonymous. But anyway, it was a normal family from what I can remember. It was a little dysfunctional. I'm going to talk about the television because everything in our family focused around the television, and we had a television in every home or every room of our home, even the bathroom. And so we had dinner, our breakfast, our lunch, our snacks. We did our homework in front of some show. And it was the 60s. It was the 70s. I'm 48 years old. I was born in 1966. And we back then it was Good Times and Sanford and Son, and Wonder Woman, and Bionic Man, and occasionally we would watch All in the Family because it was kind of racist, but you know, anyway, so we had one favorite show in our family, which was a show called The Young and the Restless, and there was 2 characters on there, and so I always knew that I was gay, and I always knew I was gay because there was something about me with fashion. I had the ability. I don't know if some of you remember Garanimals. Yeah, so I was like before Garanimals. I could like match up shoes with shirts, and I could tell my sisters, "Oh no, that's not going to work." And so I always knew. And I always loved like pants and shirts and you know, scarves and wigs and earrings and so, you know, I always knew that I was gay. So anyway, back to the show. So the show had two characters. Catherine Chancellor, her name was Miss Chancellor. She was an alcoholic, and she would always plot. So the story is that she had a housekeeper named Jill Foster who was having an affair with her husband. But Catherine Chancellor, or excuse me, Jill didn't know that Catherine Chancellor knew that she was having an affair with her husband. You follow that? Okay. So, I'm going to explain what this has to do with recovery. So my cousin, I had a cousin, Elbert, who me and Elbert wanted to be just like Jill and Miss Chancellor. And Miss Chancellor, she was glamorous. She used to wear these big diamond rings and big ruby earrings. And she used to wear these long flowing gowns and just, I was mesmerized by her. It was my cousin Elbert. He didn't have a chance because I was going to be Catherine Chancellor. He had no chance whatsoever. So we would play act Catherine and Jill. So one day we're up at my aunt's house, and so a lot of times what Catherine did, she would stand in the window with her drink, and that's when she plotted against what she was going to get to Jill. So my cousin, he went over to my aunt's liquor cabinet and he poured me a J&B Scotch, and he brought it over to me. Then I had my drink, and I stood in the window and I wrapped the drape around me so I could have a gown. And Jill said, "Miss Chancellor, how's your drink?" And I said, "I'll have another." And you know what? That's where my drinking took off. All because of Catherine Chancellor. It's all her fault. All her fault. All her fault. And she died about maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I think she was like 150, something like that. But alcohol pickled her. You know what? Actually, I know this. At the level of press, radio, and film. So she did. But, so she was a recovering alcoholic. So anyway, my story is a lot like many of yours. I drank because I didn't want to feel. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like my family. I didn't like anything. I didn't like much of anything. And alcohol helped to numb that. And I, like Lisa, I built a resentment with the people who loved me the most and told me that I was a special child, and I held that resentment. And anyway, so I ended up moving to San Francisco, and so I'm originally from Dayton, Ohio. Actually, I skipped one part. I want to add this too. I had consequences because it's important for the newcomer. Welcome, newcomers. I'm so glad that you are here. Welcome. I applaud you. So now I forgot where I was at. Oh yeah, my consequences. So I had grave consequences. I had a few DUIs. I lost a few relationships. I had performance issues at work. I thought I was hiding bottles, and forgot where I put them. I remember I had a partner once. I came home and I walked in the front door and there was all these empty bottles on the counter in the kitchen. I'm like, where'd these come from? I know they're not mine. And so that was my drinking pretty much, and it got really, really ugly. And I moved to San Francisco from Florida. I had a little stint in Florida, and I got arrested 1,000 times. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but you go to Florida on vacation, you leave on probation, you come back on violation. Me. That was me. Do I look like I have an arrest record like this? No, maybe. So anyway, I'm going to fast forward, and how I'm doing on time. Oh, so, okay, good. So So I want to be clear, like, but the gist of it was I discovered a drug called crack. I don't apologize for my use of drugs and Alcoholics Anonymous. I respect Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm going to talk about my recovery from alcohol. But I found a drug called crack, and within a year I was homeless on the streets of San Francisco amongst about 11,000 other homeless people. And this was in 1998. And I talked about my first introduction to living sober. And I remember I would go to 8th and Howard, and I would sign up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you give the last 4 digits of your social security number, and then you'd come back. And sometimes my name or my last 4 digits were there, and sometimes they weren't. And you guys know how cold it gets here. It gets cold. And when it wasn't, I did whatever I could to hustle. I found a victim. And, I did what I could. Sometimes I slept under a bridge. Sometimes I slept in an alcove. Sometimes I slept on the street. Sometimes I did. It got really, really dark for me. And there was this girl that I met. When you're on the street, you meet all these people. A lot of lawyers, or a lot of, doctors and policemen, and you meet a lot of people. And there was this girl, Marcy. She had this pamphlet, and it had all these social service agencies on it, and dental, vision, medical, blah, blah, blah. And it had treatment programs, and it had a list of programs, and it had stepping stone. And in parentheses, it said gay and lesbian emphasis. And I was like, oh, that's where I'm going to go. I'm going there. So I hustled up money, went and got me a bus ticket, and ended up in San Diego. And I got my crew from San Diego and back in the house, who I love so much, so dearly. San Diego is my birthplace because that's where I got sober. I got 2 birthplaces, but I just want to acknowledge that because that's how big AA is. People just show up, and I am so grateful that you guys showed up. You mean so much to me. So anyway, I ended up at Stepping Stone. They said I had to get a sponsor. And I was like, what is that? And they had this group, and these people used to come, and it was a rap group, and we would break off into these little subgroups. And there was this one guy who used to wear a helmet, and he was so cute, and he used to wear a leather jacket. And I was like, okay, that's my sponsor. I'm gonna pick him out. And sure enough, I asked him to be my sponsor. And he's like, okay, I'll sponsor you. So I met him, and he's like, tell me a little bit about yourself. And I was like, well, and I didn't tell you guys this, but I'll tell you now. I was 11 years estranged from my family. My family didn't know if I was dead or alive when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. And so he said, tell me, about yourself. I said, I'm 11 years estranged from my family, and I don't have no front teeth, because I didn't have no front teeth. I bought these. This is a second pair, though, since I got sober. Actually, the first pair, the Healthcare for the Homeless program paid for those. So I'm grateful to the Healthcare for the Homeless. But anyway, so my sponsor's like, tell me about yourself. And I was telling him about, all my problems and blah, 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 blah. And he said, well, why don't you go to 90 meetings in 90 days? And I'm like, well, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. I mean, God, I'm toothless, I'm homeless. So I got rid of him. I'm like, nope.
To obtain additional copies, receive a free catalog of AA and Al-Anon talks, or to find out about our tape and CD of the Month Club, call Encore Audio Archives at 1-800-878-1308, or visit our website at www.12steptapes.com.
No, I'm not working with him. And as soon as my counselor got wind of that, he wasn't having it. I had to keep working with him. And thank God. His name was Bobby Z. He lives in Chicago. That man saved my life. He showed up at Christmas. He showed up for Family Day. He showed up. And he was my family. And anyway, he took me through the steps. A lot of that is foggy, and I just know that my life began to change. You know, I went back to school. I got muscles. I got tattoos. I got all the things we get in AA when we get sober. You know, I got all that stuff. I got a degree. I mean, my life just took off. And about 5 years of sobriety, I met this guy at this place called Adam for Adam. Some of you may be familiar with that place. And I met this guy, and I'm going to tell you guys, we met on May 15th, and we closed on our house on August the 30th.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
And you know, no offense, I'm wearing a bracelet right now that says Lesbian Nation loves me, Lesbian Nation in the house. That's what this bracelet says. But you know what? That was just like being a lesbian. I'm sorry. I love you guys, but you know what? We gay men do the same thing, you know? Hello. So anyway, it was crazy. And by November 1st, I was ready to kill him and he was ready to kill me. It was insane. And what I can tell you about that experience is that the bottom line is, you know what, you guys? All I ever wanted in my life was to just be loved. That's it. And I would have done anything, sacrificed my morals, my values, my beliefs, just to be loved. So anyway, that relationship went sour. So I was living in San Diego at the time, and I just said, you know, I can't take this anymore. So what happened is my life got really big and AA got really small. And that thinking, like when you're a newcomer, oh my God, if she raised her hand one more time, here we go again. Oh my God, you know. So all that came back, and the judgment. And I was one of those kind of people who sat back in the room, and when you guys would read the traditions, and I always thought that was a free hall pass to talk. You know, it's like, it's time to talk. Why are they reading? And I'm talking to my friends, and I'm trying to tell my friends, like, what we going to do after the meeting, and how we going to work our recoveries, and how we going to change our lives. And this lady tapped me on my back. Excuse me? And she said, shh. The newcomer may want to hear that. Oh, no, she didn't just interrupt my conversation. And I went running after that meeting to tell my sponsor. I couldn't wait to go tell him. And I said, can you believe I'm at this meeting? And then the traditions when you're supposed to be talking about your recovery. And this lady gonna tap me on my shoulder and tell me to shut up. Because she said, shh, but I heard, shut up. And, you know, the mind. So anyway, you know, that was me. And so, you know, so like I said, I got distant from AA. I'm going to talk real fast because they gave me the 10-minute warning. And like Lisa said, you can't get all this in. And so anyway, so it got kind of dark for me, really, really dark. I was distant from the program. I wasn't drinking or using drugs, but it was just like I was drinking and using drugs. And I moved back to San Francisco, and I looked up, and there I was. Somebody said that earlier. I was like, oh, who's that person? Oh, shit, that's me. And there I was, and I said, I'll fix myself. I'll get a good job. I got this great job. They hired me as a program coordinator, and I started as the executive director. Within 2 weeks, they said, I wonder why that morning when I saw the HR director with my boss, anytime you see HR with your boss, it's curtains. They were like, girl, here's your check, get to stepping. And so now on top of the relationship going sour, I got this thing with the job. And so I'm feeling all this stuff. I'm sober. I'm feeling all of this. And I had some random blood work done, just random because I was having some problems. I don't know, whatever. I had some blood work. And then I got this call from my doctor, and the doctor's like, oh, Mr. Husband, we want to give you your results of your test. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, by the way, did you know that you were HIV positive? And I just was like, I just had so much shame, you guys. I was 40 years old and 7 years sober, and I was like, how could this have happened? And all I could do was call my sponsor, and I called my sponsor, and he said, we're getting back to the basics. And it was on a Thursday, and that Friday I went to the early start meeting at 6 o'clock. It's a huge meeting, and it was elections. And I'm sitting there next to my sponsor, and someone nominated me for the coffee commitment. And back then, the coffee commitment was huge. You had to boil this big old pot of water and go shopping for all this fruits and buy all the cookies and the teas and all that. And it was huge, a big old commitment. And I was like, you gonna nominate me for coffee and I got 7.5 years sober? Oh, hell no. And then I looked over at my sponsor, and I was like, oh, I'll take it. I got it. And you know what? I went for that. I started for that commitment at 3 o'clock. I went shopping for that stuff, and I chopped up that fruit like I ain't never chopped fruit before. And I arranged them teas in alphabetical order, and I put that water in them pots, and I decorated that table, and that commitment saved my life. And then they nominated me for another 6 months. It's like, girl, God. And you know what? Them queens came up and they would stuff them cookies in their pockets. And queens and kings, they would stuff them cookies in their pockets. And I counted how many cookies they took. I was like, girl, you just took a bunch of cookies. God. Girl. You just took a cup. Shit. And I managed those cookies, and I managed those cups, and you know, God is so good, and I started to heal, and I started to come back and I got into the middle of the lifeboat, and I started doing girls' night out. After that meeting, I went fellowship, my girls' night out in the house, and we went to fellowship every Friday, and you know, I got in the middle of the herd. I just did the basics. I started going to meetings again. I started talking about what was going on with me, and people tapped me on my shoulder. My sponsees, some of my sponsees are here. Sponsees in the house, and there's a couple of my former sponsors in the house. And you know, as I talked about myself, I started to heal, and people asked me to sponsor them, and I had all these babies. I wasn't working. I just listened to her crazy, and I got better. I'm like, okay, baby, you're gonna be okay. It's gonna be all right. And I started to heal, and I got better, and I just dove in, and so anyway, my sponsor started me on the steps, and I'm going to close with this because I got to wrap up. They're giving me the sign. And I value structure. I learned how to have structure. I value it. I don't want all of y'all cussing me out and coming to me afterwards. So let me tell you this. So when I was 12 years old, I had a paper route. And there was some money that came up missing. My aunt was the paper route mother. She was the person who gathered all the money from the paper boys who came, blah, blah, blah. And there was this bag of money, a bunch of quarters and ones and blah, blah, blah. And it came up missing. And she used to call me Marco. I was her favorite nephew. And first thing she said, oh, I know my Marco didn't take it. So I helped everybody look for it. I'm like, but you know, I had it in my pocket. So for 35 years, that monkey that sits on your neck and goes, you know, you stole that money from your Aunt Winnie. You're her favorite nephew. When you going to pay that money back? When you go home for Thanksgiving, you know your Aunt Winnie going to wonder, well, that money, you pay that money. You know that money on that monkey, right? And And my sponsor said, we got to my 8th step and we made that list. And that 9th step, he said, take your butt back to Dayton, Ohio, and you're going to pay that money back. So I went back to Dayton, Ohio, and I met with my Aunt Winnie, and I sat down and I said, Aunt Winnie, do you remember 35 years ago when that money came up missing? And she goes, Marco, and this big grin on her face. She had this big old huge grin. And I go, yeah. She goes, yeah. I go, well, Winnie, I stole that money. And the grin got bigger and bigger, a big old grin. And I go, Aunt Winnie, why you got that big old grin on your face? And she said, because I knew you stole that damn money. I said, Aunt Winnie, how come you didn't say anything? And she said, because your mama would have beat your ass. That's why I didn't say anything. And you know what? I got a phone call 6 months later, you guys, from my mom. And she said, are you sitting down? And you know, when you hear that, when you hear that from your family, they live 3,000 miles away. And she said, your Aunt Winnie passed. And you know what? I was liberated. I was rocketed in the 4th dimension. I was free. I had paid that money back. So anyway, as I wrap up, you know, I want to say this. I worked with the same sponsor for 8 years, and it was the healthiest relationship that I've ever had with a man in my life. And his name is Stuart S., and I love him dearly. And I changed sponsors. I started working with Christy S., and she don't play. And she lives in the peninsula. And I used to meet my sponsor across the street from where I live, but I had to drive from where I live at Church and Market to Pacifica. And I remember driving, I'm like, I'm not going to be driving all the way to Pacifica to be meeting her all the way over here. And then I'd show up at her house, and as soon as I sat down, she's like, pull your book out. Oh, hell no. I'm not used to this. And so I pulled my book out, and we start working the steps. And by week 3, I was on my 3rd step. And I start bullshitting with her. She's like, Mark, you can bullshit with me when we finish all 12 steps. And I finished all 12 steps with her. I'm so grateful, Christy. I'm so grateful. It changed my life. I'm so grateful. Thank you all for supporting me. I'm so grateful to Alcoholics Anonymous and all of you here. Thank you so much.
We hope you've enjoyed this recording. To obtain additional copies, receive a free catalog of AA and Al-Anon talks, or to find out about our tape and CD of the Month Club, call Encore Audio Archives at 1-800-878-1308, or visit our website at www.12steptapes.com.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.